In the shadowed tranquility of a quaint suburb, a hidden menace stirs. When Emma, a fourth grader, dashes toward safety aboard her school bus one chilling morning, it sets off a chain of suspenseful events. Her bus driver, Andy, catches a glimpse of her terror-stricken eyes, a silent scream for help that cannot be ignored. As they navigate a web of daunting secrets together, be sure to subscribe and follow their journey, where every turn could unravel deeper mysteries, challenging their courage and trust in each other. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow across the suburban streets and illuminating the neat rows of houses that lined the way. The golden light spilled over well-manicured lawns, where dew sparkled like tiny diamonds, and gave life to the towering trees that rustled gently in the morning breeze. It was another routine day for Andy, the reliable school bus driver, as he sat comfortably in the driver's seat of his bright yellow bus, steering his way along the familiar route that had become second nature to him over the years. As he navigated the bus with its cheerful color and sturdy frame, Andy admired the little details that marked his path, the way the children's laughter floated through the air each morning and how the chatter from the bus mirrored the lively sounds of the neighborhood awakening. He had been driving this same route for over a decade, a period that had woven countless stories and memories into the fabric of his daily life. The warm smiles of the children, their excited chatter, and the easy camaraderie he shared with parents waiting at bus stops always brought a sense of joy to his day. They were more than just passengers to him. They were a part of his extended family, each one adding color to his routine. As Andy rounded a familiar corner, he glanced in his side mirror and noticed something unusual. A small figure was sprinting frantically down the street, her coat flapping wildly behind her like a flag signaling urgency. It was Emma, a quiet girl from the fourth grade who was often in her own little world, lost in her daydreams or absorbed in the pages of her favorite books. Despite her reserved nature, Emma had an innate ability to brighten the day with her radiant smiles that seemed to bloom effortlessly across her face. Emma's frantic pace immediately drew Andy's attention, and a sense of concern washed over him as he slowed the bus. What could have caused her to be running so late? The other kids on the bus, sensing the shift in the air, quieted down and turned their heads to watch the unfolding scene. Andy could feel their collective curiosity, but there was something more important at hand. He opened the bus door, the familiar sound echoing out into the morning, and called out gently, "Hey, Emma, are you okay? Do you need a ride?" Emma looked up, her face flushed with exertion, and for a moment, there was a glimmer of panic in her eyes. But then, seeing the welcoming smile of her beloved bus driver, her expression transformed. She hurried over, breathless but grateful, her hair bobbing as she ran, and waved apologetically at Andy and the other kids. "I'm sorry. I lost track of time," she exclaimed between gasps, her voice carrying a mix of embarrassment and relief. Andy chuckled softly, his heart warming at the sight. The other kids giggled gently at Emma's misadventure, but there was no malice, just the innocent camaraderie that comes with being a group of close-knit friends. "Don't worry about it, Emma. Hop on in," he said, motioning for her to join them. As she climbed aboard, the bus erupted with cheerful greetings and playful teasing, a comforting chaotic symphony that wrapped around Emma like a warm hug. Andy watched her settle into a seat, relief washing over him as she laughed along with her peers, her earlier panic dissolving into the joy of shared morning antics. With Emma safely on board, Andy put the bus back in gear and continued on his route, the morning sun warming their faces as it rose higher in the sky. He felt a renewed sense of purpose in his role, knowing that he wasn't just transporting children to school but also weaving a tapestry of community, friendship, and the simple joys of everyday life. Today, like every day, was just another chapter in the beautiful story of their suburban adventure. But today was different. As she reached the bus, Andy could see the terror etched on her young face, her cheeks flushed, and tears streaming down like the heavy rain that had fallen earlier in the morning. Something was undeniably wrong, and a knot formed in his stomach at the sight of her distress. He could feel the unease in the air, thick and palpable, as he took a step closer, the sun beginning to set behind the clouds, casting an ominous glow. He quickly opened the door of the bus, concern flooding his voice as he called out to her. "Emma, what's going on?" His heart raced as he noted her ragged breath, each gasp seeming to echo the urgency of the situation. Emma climbed aboard with a shaky determination, but her little hands trembled uncontrollably as she clutched her oversized backpack, an anchor to whatever strength she had left. Her wide, terrified eyes darted anxiously toward her home, an innocuous-looking house that suddenly felt like a scene from a nightmare. "Please don't leave me," she pleaded, her voice shaking like the fragile leaves in the wind. "I need help." At that moment, Andy felt a chill creep down his spine, the kind that usually accompanies an unwelcome realization that something far more serious might be lurking beneath the surface. "You're safe here," he reassured her, trying to infuse as much calmness as he could muster into his tone. "But I need you to tell me what's wrong." He crouched down to her level, trying to meet her frantic gaze. His mind raced with possibilities. Was it something at school? A problem with friends? Or something deeper, darker that he couldn't even imagine? Emma's bright smile, which he had seen countless times, seemed a distant memory now, replaced with this palpable fear that gripped her. "Take your time," he urged gently, keeping his voice steady as he noticed the way her shoulders shook. "You can tell me anything. I'm here to help you." Andy's heart ached for the little girl who now seemed so small and vulnerable, wishing I can't go back," Emma whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her fear. "He said he'd hurt me if I told anyone." Her words hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick with raw panic and desperation. The tremor in her voice sent a shiver down Andy's spine, igniting a surge of protectiveness within him. His heart dropped, feeling the gravity of her situation crush into him like a physical blow. He quickly scanned her small frame, and his gaze landed on the faint bruises that peeked out from beneath her coat sleeves, dark, angry splotches that told a story of pain and fear. This was more serious than he had anticipated, far beyond what his instincts had warned him. He needed to handle this delicately. "Listen to me, Emma," he said, urgency lacing his tone. "You're safe now. I promise you, no one is going to hurt you while you're with me." He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a gentle murmur. "But I need to know who is trying to hurt you." Emma shook her head vehemently, panic flaring in her wide eyes as tears spilled down her cheeks, leaving glistening trails in their wake. "I can't. He'll know. If I say anything, he'll make sure I regret it." The trembling in her body betrayed the internal battle she was waging, fighting between the impulse to confide in Andy and the crippling fear that held her hostage. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Andy's voice softened further, becoming a steady anchor amid her turmoil. "You did the right thing by coming to me, Emma. I understand this is terrifying, but you're not alone in this. I promise, you have my support." He reached out cautiously, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, a silent promise that he would do everything in his power to protect her. After a long moment, marked by her shallow breaths and the weight of unspoken words, Emma nodded hesitantly, the tiniest flicker of trust sparking in her eyes. Andy's heart swelled with determination. He knew they had to take steps to protect her, to help her break free from the shackles of fear that had imprisoned her for too long. But first, he needed her to understand that she was safe with him. "We'll figure this out together," he said quietly, his grip firm yet gentle. You're stronger than you think, and I'll be right here with you. Stay right here, he said gently, his voice soothing yet firm as he glanced back at the girl sitting in the middle of the bus, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of fear and uncertainty. I need to make a call. He felt a surge of responsibility flood through him. He wanted to ensure that Emma felt safe while he took the necessary steps to help her. With a sense of urgency, he parked the bus safely at the side of the road, making sure that it was secure and the hazards were on. He quickly grabbed his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed the number of the school counselor. Miss Davis. The line connected almost immediately, and her voice cut through the silence like a beacon of hope. Hello, this is Miss Davis, she answered, her tone professional yet warm. This is serious, Andy explained, his heart pounding in his chest as adrenaline coursed through him. He found it difficult to steady his breathing. Emma just got on the bus, and she's scared. She says someone's threatening her. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, and he could hear the urgency in his own voice. There was a brief pause on the line, and he could almost hear Miss Davis processing the information. I've been concerned about Emma for a while, she admitted, her voice tinged with worry. She's been withdrawn lately, but nothing pointed to this. I'll call Child Protective Services right away. Don't leave her side. Andy nodded, even though she couldn't see him. He clicked off the call, a mix of anxiety and determination swirling in his chest. He turned back to Emma, who was still sitting in her seat, fidgeting with the straps of her backpack and glancing nervously out of the window as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Hey, Emma, he said softly, crouching down to her level so they were eye to eye. I've just talked to Miss Davis. She's going to help us, okay? You're safe with me, I promise. He could see her shoulders relax slightly at his words, though the fear in her eyes didn't fully dissipate. Do you want to talk about it? He asked gently, hoping to give her an opening without pushing her too hard. He could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on the both of them, but he was determined to be a steady presence for her in this moment of crisis. Emma hesitated, taking a deep breath as if summoning the courage she needed. I don't know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I just feel like someone is watching me. And then there were the messages, the words trailed off, and her gaze dropped to her lap. Andy's heart sank as he realized the depth of Emma's fear, but he also felt a fierce protectiveness swell within him. You did the right thing by telling me, Emma. We're going to figure this out together. He took a seat next to her, ready to listen without judgment, hoping to provide her with comfort in this turbulent moment. As they sat there in silence, the bus gently swaying with the motion of the wind outside, Andy felt a quiet determination building in his chest. He would do everything in his power to keep Emma safe and ensure that the help she so desperately needed was on the way. After finishing the morning route and ensuring the other children were safe, Andy parked the bus at the school, his mind racing with thoughts and worries about Emma. He had sensed something was off during the ride. Her usual bright demeanor was replaced by an uncomfortable silence. As he turned off the engine, he noticed Miss Davis standing by the entrance, her expression grave and full of concern. Andy could feel the weight of the moment as they exchanged glances, understanding that something significant was about to happen. Together, they moved toward the familiar, yet somber, atmosphere of Miss Davis's office, careful to ensure that Emma felt as secure as possible amidst the unease that hung in the air. The hallway, usually bustling with laughter and chatter, seemed quiet and distant. Emma clung tightly to Andy's arm, her small fingers gripping him as if he were her lifeline. They all settled into the office, the walls adorned with colorful posters and reminders of the school's core values: kindness, respect, and courage, which seemed to stand in stark contrast to the gravity of the situation. Despite the safe environment, Emma's body trembled slightly, her wide eyes darting around the room, filled with tears that threatened to spill over. "Please don't make me go back," Emma whispered, her voice trembling with fear. The vulnerability in her tone struck a chord in both Andy and Miss Davis, filling the air with an urgency that was palpable. It was clear that whatever had transpired, it had deeply affected her, and the last thing they wanted was to add to her stress. "Emma, we're here to help you," Miss Davis said softly, kneeling to get on her level, her voice gentle yet firm. "You're very brave for speaking up. We need to know more so we can keep you safe." Her sincerity was evident, and it seemed to momentarily ease Emma's grip on Andy's arm, if only slightly. Andy watched as Miss Davis continued, her eyes warm but serious, urging Emma to trust them. "It's okay to be scared, but I promise you, you are not alone. We can work through this together." Every word was carefully chosen, designed to reassure Emma while emphasizing the importance of her story. In that moment, Andy felt a mixture of admiration for Emma's bravery and a fierce determination to do whatever it took to help her find the safety and peace she so desperately needed. He leaned down, whispering softly to her, "You're tougher than you think, Emma. It's okay to share what you're feeling. We're all here for you." His presence aimed to provide a sense of stability, letting her know that she had an ally as they navigated this difficult path together. As silence enveloped the room for a brief moment, it became clear that a new chapter was unfolding, one where Emma could find her voice and reclaim her sense of safety with the support of those who genuinely cared for her well-being. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks like a relentless waterfall. Each droplet felt like a piece of her heart breaking all over again, the weight of her situation pressing down on her fragile shoulders. She felt lost in a whirlwind of emotions, her fear swirling around her like a dark storm cloud. Andy crouched next to her once more, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. "You've already been brave, Emma. You don't have to face this alone anymore," he reassured her, his voice steady and calm. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, hoping to provide some semblance of stability amidst the chaos that had enveloped her life. The tense atmosphere in the room grew thick as the door creaked open, revealing the Child Protective Services worker standing at the threshold. Her presence seemed to illuminate the shadowy corners of the room, but it also ignited a fresh wave of anxiety within Emma. The woman's professional demeanor cut through the air like a sharp knife, and Emma could feel the tension clenching in her chest as she took in the stranger's authoritative stance. "Emma, I'm here to help you," the woman said, her voice gentle yet firm, attempting to penetrate the protective bubble of fear that surrounded the young girl. "I'll take you to a safe place where no one can hurt you." That simple statement sent a surge of panic rushing through Emma, her instincts screaming at her to hold on tightly to the only person she felt safe with. "No!" Emma cried out, her voice rising in desperation as she instinctively wrapped her arms around Andy's waist, clinging to him as if he were a lifeline in the midst of a stormy sea. "Please don't make me go. I want to stay with you." The urgency in her tone was palpable, each word laced with a deep-seated fear of abandonment that had haunted her for far too long. In that moment, she could hardly bear the thought of being separated from Andy, the only person who had shown her kindness and understanding amidst the overwhelming darkness that shrouded her life. Andy looked down at her, his expression softening as he crouched closer, trying to convey his unwavering support through his presence alone. "Emma, it's okay," he whispered, brushing a few stray tears from her cheek with his thumb. "I know this is scary, but I promise you, I'll be right here every step of the way. This is about keeping you safe." Despite the comfort of his words, the fear in Emma's heart still thundered, and the weight of uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The room was heavy with tension, and she could feel the walls closing in around her, overwhelming her with the looming idea of the unknown. Andy's heart ached, but he knew he couldn't promise what wasn't his to give. He knelt down, holding her small hands between his own, feeling the warmth that burned with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Emma," he said softly, trying to pour all the strength he could muster into his voice. "I can't go with you, but I swear I'll make sure you're safe. I'll be right here, and I'll check on you every day, if I can. I promise." Emma's tear-filled eyes searched his face for reassurance, desperately seeking a glimmer of safety in the storm swirling around them. For a moment, the world fell away, and the chaos of their situation faded, leaving only their shared connection, a bond forged in a moment of crisis. Finally, she let go reluctantly, her small fingers slipping from his grasp as she took the worker's hand with a hesitant nod. She looked back over her shoulder, her eyes wide and vulnerable, her small face a poignant mixture of fear and hope as the distance between them grew. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the empty street, Andy's mind was still racing. He found himself driving through Emma's neighborhood, unable to shake the image of her frightened face from his thoughts, the way her lips quivered even as she tried to muster some semblance of courage. It gnawed at him, an unsettling weight pressing down in his chest, each thought filled with the desire to protect her, to shield her from the uncertainties that lay ahead. As he passed Emma's house for the third time, something caught his attention. There, in the driveway, was a figure, a man, his silhouette sharply defined against the fading light. He was ominously wrestling a heavy duffel bag into the trunk of his car, moving with a purpose that sent a chill down Andy's spine. The man's demeanor exuded a sense of urgency that felt out of place in the quiet suburban evening. Andy's gut tightened as he slowed the car, instinctively reaching for his phone. Through the windshield, he observed the man's scruffy appearance, disheveled hair, unshaven jaw, and frantic movements. The way he moved seemed wrong, as if he were desperately trying to hide something. Andy's instincts were kicking in, screaming at him to do something, to intervene. He glanced back toward Emma's house, the warmth and comfort of her smile, which now felt like a distant memory, fading into the shadows. It was there he made his choice. He couldn't let his fear paralyze him. He had promised Emma he would keep her safe, and that wasn't just words. Not anymore. Taking a deep breath, he parked the car a few houses down, heart pounding in his ears. As he stepped out, he felt the night air wrap around him, cooler now, laden with uncertainty. He was determined, though, nothing would stand in the way of protecting Emma. Moving stealthily, he edged closer, wary of the man in the driveway. Every instinct urged him to rush over, to demand answers, but he knew that would only heighten the tension. Instead, he opted for observation, keeping to the shadows while waiting for the right moment to approach. As the man slammed the trunk shut with finality, Andy's heart raced. What was he doing here? And why did he have that heavy duffel bag? Just as he gathered his thoughts, ready to confront the man, he caught a glimpse of movement inside Emma's house. A flicker of light, a shadow crossing the window. He had to make a decision quickly. Fear and resolve surged through him as he watched the man make his way around the car. With a rush of adrenaline, Andy stepped forward, stepping out of the shadows, his voice steady but firm. "Hey! What are you doing here?" The confrontation, and the safety of Emma, hung in the balance. A chill ran through Andy as he recognized the man. Brian, Emma's father. Even from a distance, Brian's agitation was evident as he repeatedly glanced over his shoulder, his brow furrowed in worry. It was a sight that sent alarm bells ringing in Andy's mind. The tremors of unease prickled along his spine. Something was off. Andy slowed down. Instincts honed from years of working with children screamed that something wasn't right. The vibrant schoolyard, usually filled with the laughter and chatter of kids, faded into a blur as his focus narrowed on Brian. The way he shifted nervously from one foot to another, the darting glances over his shoulder, it was all telling. Andy instinctively reached for his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed Detective Mark Reynolds, an old family friend and trusted source in times of uncertainty and danger. "Mark, I need your help," he said when the line connected, urgency threading through his voice. "It's about one of the kids on my route, Emma. She came to me today, terrified. I just saw her dad loading a big duffel bag into his car." His heart raced as he spoke, the image of Emma's frightened face replaying in his mind like a movie reel he couldn't stop. "Did he leave?" Mark asked, his tone shifting immediately to a more serious note, the kind of voice that commanded focus. Andy could hear the rustle of papers on the other end, likely Mark scrambling to collect his tools and gear to handle whatever situation awaited them. "No, not yet," Andy replied, glancing around to ensure that Brian was still in sight. "But I think he's about to. He looks really anxious and is acting suspiciously." There was something off about how Emma was acting too, like she was scared of him. "Stay where you are. Don't approach him. I'll get there as soon as I can," Mark instructed, his voice steady and authoritative. Andy could almost visualize him, pulling on his jacket and grabbing his keys, ready to spring into action. As he hung up, Andy remained rooted to the sidewalk, watching as Brian continued to fidget, looking around as though he were expecting someone to come out of the shadows. Every instinct told him to intervene, to confront Brian and demand to know what was going on, but he understood that it was wiser to wait for Mark's arrival. The looming presence of danger felt palpable, and Andy couldn't shake the knot of dread forming in his stomach. He took a breath, trying to calm himself. In the past, his job involved teaching kids how to cross streets safely and keeping them entertained during long rides to school. But now it felt like he was standing on the edge of something deeper, something darker. He scanned the area for anyone who might be nearby, looking for other parents or school staff. The peaceful afternoon that should have been teeming with laughter and play was overshadowed by the growing tension surrounding Brian's frantic energy. Andy resisted the urge to call out to Brian and demand answers. Instead, he focused on staying vigilant, aware of every movement and every sound around him. Time felt suspended, each passing minute stretching agonizingly long as he monitored the situation, hoping desperately that Mark would arrive before anything escalated. Emma's safety was his top priority, and he wouldn't allow anything to happen to her, even if it meant standing in freezing uncertainty, keeping an eye on a troubled father. "No, he's back in the house now. I didn't want to approach without backup." "Good call, Andy," came the reassuring reply. "I'll run his name through the system and see if anything pops up. We're on this." The weight of the situation hung between them, thick with unspoken fears and potential danger. Andy could sense that something wasn't right, and the urgency in his partner's voice only confirmed his instincts. The following day dawned. Overcast and heavy, the air laden with tension as Laura Jenkins, the Child Protective Services worker, made her way to the Carter home. Her clipboard was a familiar weight in her hands, primarily serving as an anchor for her thoughts that swirled wildly in her mind. This wasn't just another visit. It felt different, charged with an unsettling energy that she couldn't quite place. As she approached the house, her heart began to race. The Carter home loomed ahead, its silence almost oppressive. The curtains were drawn tightly, as if the occupants were hiding from the outside world, shut away in a bubble of secrecy. It was odd how the smell of bleach clung to the air, sharp and aggressive, mingling with a faint scent of something else, something darker that made her stomach twist slightly. It felt wrong, but she steeled herself. This was her job, and she needed to remember that. "Mr. Carter?" Laura called out as she knocked gently on the door, trying to inject a measure of professionalism into her tone, despite her rising sense of unease. The moment stretched into an eternity before the door creaked open, revealing Brian Carter. He stood there in the dim light, a strained smile plastered across his face, as if he were welcoming an unwanted guest who had barged in unannounced. "Can I help you?" he asked, and the dismissiveness in his voice was palpable, cutting through the crisp morning air like a knife. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. Something was definitely off. "I'm Laura Jenkins from Child Protective Services," she introduced herself, holding her clipboard firmly in front of her, as though it could act as a shield against whatever might come next. "I'm here to discuss your son and to ensure everything is okay." At her words, the brief flicker of warmth in Brian's smile faded, replaced by a guarded expression that suggested he was quickly calculating his next move. There was an unsettling tension in the air, and Laura could feel the pulse of hesitation that slipped between them like a shadow. "Everything is fine here, just fine," he insisted, his voice suddenly too casual, too airy for someone addressing a matter of such seriousness. Laura's trained instincts were screaming at her. She noted the faint tremor in his hands and the way his eyes darted away from hers. "Mr. Carter," she pressed gently but firmly, "I really need to speak with you about your son's well-being. It's important." Brian's facade began to crack, revealing a flicker of concern that flitted across his features before he quickly masked it again. The atmosphere in the entryway felt as though it could shatter at any moment, and Laura took a step inside, ready to confront whatever lay hidden behind the closed doors of this house shrouded in silence and suspicion. "I'm here to talk to you about Emma," Laura said, flashing her badge with a confident, purposeful motion. Brian's expression shifted immediately, tension brimming in his eyes. "Emma is fine. There's nothing to worry about," he insisted, his voice convincing yet strained, as though he were attempting to pull her into a different conversation, one where everything was normal and no questions needed to be asked. But Laura had long trained herself to recognize when something was amiss. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her professional instincts kicking into overdrive. The air in the house felt oddly heavy, and the silence settled around them like a thick fog. Something was off. She could feel it in her bones. The house, although immaculate, had an unsettling sterility, a kind of gleaming perfection that set off alarm bells in her mind. It reminded her of those sterile, too well-kept rooms that people often use to hide the chaos that lurked just out of sight. With trained eyes, she scanned the surroundings for anything that might hint at the truth behind Brian's denials. The furniture was placed with meticulous care, each item almost too perfect, devoid of the usual signs of life and comfort. There were no photographs on the walls, no personal touches, almost as if the place was set up merely for show, as if someone were trying to present an illusion of normalcy. Her gaze fell to the far end of the hallway, where a wooden door stood slightly ajar. It looked like it had been hastily closed. The faintest crack revealing shadows beyond that piqued her curiosity. "What's down there?" she inquired, motioning toward the door with a steady hand. Brian's face paled, and for a fleeting moment, Laura wondered if he might backpedal, offering some excuse to divert her attention. Instead, he swallowed hard, his gaze darting away from her piercing eyes. "It's just storage," he mumbled, his tone too casual to be genuine. The way he shifted uncomfortably at the mention of the door told Laura everything she needed to know. There was more to the story than he was willing to share. She stepped forward, determination coursing through her veins as she moved slowly toward the door. "Let's take a look," she said, her voice firm, underscoring the authority her badge represented. "I'm sure Emma would want us to make sure everything is all right." Brian's hesitation spoke volumes. She could almost hear his internal struggle, whether to comply or resist, to uphold the facade or let her in on whatever secret lay behind that door. Laura's instincts urged her forward, and she took another step, ready to confront whatever truth lay beyond, while keeping her gaze firmly fixed on Brian. The tension in the air thickened, whispering promises of revelation and danger in equal measure. "Just storage," Brian interjected quickly, his eyes narrowing like slits as he turned to face her. There was an edge in his voice that suggested more than mere disinterest. "Nothing you need to see." Laura crossed her arms, refusing to back down. "I think I'd like to check," she asserted, her voice stronger now, determination flooding her tone. The curiosity burning in her chest ignited a sense of urgency. She sensed that what lay behind that door could hold the answers she desperately sought. Brian's demeanor shifted instantly. It was as if a switch had flipped. His posture stiffened and he stepped in front of her, effectively blocking her path. The irritation radiating from him was palpable, a storm brewing behind his steely gaze. "No," he said flatly, his voice firm as if the matter was closed. "You can't go down there. Trust me." A knot formed in Laura's stomach, tightening with every word he spoke. A prickling sensation crawled up her spine as her instincts screamed that danger was lurking beneath the surface of his casual dismissal. She couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's safety hinged on what was hidden from her view. "I need to make sure Emma is safe," she insisted, her tone shifting to a blend of authority and desperation. The air between them grew thick with unspoken tension, and the stakes seemed to rise with every heartbeat. Brian's jaw clenched, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw a flicker of something. Fear, perhaps, in the depths of his narrowed eyes. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cold resolve. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low and urgent. "There are things down there that you don't want to get involved with. Just trust me. Please." A battle raged within her. Laura could feel the push and pull of doubt and conviction. She didn't want to be dismissive of Brian's warning, yet her resolve to protect Emma surged stronger than ever. Despite their tension, her heart was tethered to the idea that if she walked away now, she would never forgive herself. But eventually, after what felt like an eternity of silence, with both of them glaring at one another, they left the house without conducting a search. Shadows danced in the corners of the dimly lit hallway as they passed through, but Laura couldn't shake off the suspicion that had taken root in her mind. As they stepped into the daylight, everything felt wrong, like a surface calm before a storm. While the sun illuminated the path ahead, she couldn't ignore the lingering darkness that surrounded Brian, and the ominous thoughts swirling in her head. She resolved, even without decisive proof, that the answers she sought weren't as distant as they appeared. She knew she would return. There were questions that demanded answers, and she wouldn't rest until her instincts were satisfied. Later that evening, Andy met with Detective Mark once again, this time at their usual cafe, a quiet corner table tucked away from the bustling crowds. The dim light cast a soft glow over the space as Andy leaned in, urgency etched across his face. He shared the details of his discoveries in a hushed tone, his heart heavy with the knowledge he carried. "I just don't want this little girl's cries for help to go unheard," he said, his voice thick with anguish. The thought of Emma suffering in silence weighed on him like a stone. Detective Mark listened intently, his brow furrowing as Andy spoke. "Let's monitor the situation closely," he replied, his tone steady, a contrast to the turmoil swirling inside Andy. "If any more suspicious activity occurs, we'll act." Mark's voice was firm, but Andy could hear the unspoken worry in it. They both understood the stakes were high. Every moment counted in the effort to protect Emma. As the investigation unfolded, Emma remained at the forefront of everyone's minds, her bravery igniting a flicker of hope in even the most jaded hearts. With each passing day, the team dedicated themselves to her, poring over leads and piecing together the puzzle that surrounded her. They were relentless in their efforts, determined to ensure that Emma would never feel alone again, to shield her from the shadows that had loomed over her life for far too long. In the following days, amidst the flurry of investigations and strategy meetings, Emma found solace during her sessions with Laura Jenkins. This particular afternoon, as they sat in a sunlit room filled with warmth, Laura met Emma's gaze, her tone gentle yet empowering. "You've done so well, Emma," Laura encouraged her, noticing the girl's small but significant progress. "You're safe now, and we'll make sure it stays that way." Emma felt a glimmer of hope at Laura's words, a feeling that had seemed distant for so long. In that moment, as Laura spoke, Emma realized that she was no longer alone in her fight. There were people around her who cared deeply, who would stand guard against the darkness that threatened to creep back into her life. The strength of her spirit resonated through the room, knitting a bond between them that flourished in trust and support. However, as they sat in Laura's office, fear flickered across Emma's face once more. The walls, though painted a calming shade of blue, felt like they were closing in on her. "What if he comes for me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, as she glanced anxiously at the door, half expecting to see Brian's menacing figure lurking just beyond the threshold. "Emma," Laura soothed gently, leaning forward in her chair and fixing her eyes on Emma's. "We've taken steps to keep you safe. You are not alone, and we won't let him hurt you again." Her voice was firm, yet tender, instilling a glimmer of hope amidst Emma's spiraling anxiety. As Laura continued to speak, Emma felt the warmth of camaraderie forming around her like an invisible shield. There was something reassuring in the unwavering support from Laura, Andy, and Detective Mark. It was as if they were a tightly knit community standing guard against the darkness that threatened to invade her life. Slowly, as the comforting words sank in, Emma began to trust that she truly was safe within these walls and amongst these people who cared so deeply for her well-being. Days turned into weeks, and the case against Brian was building. Each gathering in Laura's office became a ritual of sorts, an unspoken commitment to preserving Emma's courage. Shared laughter sometimes broke the tension, and they'd brainstorm ideas on how best to handle the situation. Andy proved himself to be a reliable confidant and friend, always quick to lend a listening ear. Detective Mark, with his calm demeanor and seasoned perspective, meticulously outlined the steps they were taking to hold Brian accountable. Throughout it all, Laura remained the steadfast anchor. She kept the lines of communication open, ensuring that Emma knew she could speak freely about her fears and concerns. Together, they delved into the details of what would come next: court hearings, restraining orders, and everything that would eventually lead to Emma's liberation from the grip of fear. As Emma found solace in their unwavering commitment, a small but determined spark began to flicker within her, a sense of agency slowly rekindling like a flame after a long and bitter winter. She learned how to walk with a little more confidence, how to assert herself, and how to take back the power that had been stripped away. With every passing day, she took comfort in knowing that she was not facing this battle alone. The supportive network wrapped around Emma was slowly becoming her lifeline, allowing her to not only envision a future free from Brian's shadow but also to reclaim her identity in the process. The determination of her newfound allies bolstered her spirit, and together they forged a path toward justice. Each moment spent discussing strategies and reviewing evidence brought them closer to a formidable force, a united front against her past. As they worked diligently to prepare for the approaching hearings, Emma began to feel a sense of hope blossom within her, intertwining with the camaraderie built around her. The fear that once held her prisoner was slowly being replaced by the realization that she possessed an inner strength she had only begun to uncover. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Laura, Andy, and Detective Mark by her side, she felt more ready to face whatever might come next. After a lengthy and arduous investigation, the team finally managed to uncover pivotal evidence that would change the course of their efforts. This critical breakthrough came in the form of documents and digital files that pointed to a troubling pattern of behavior, along with a witness who bravely decided to come forward to support Emma's long-held fears. This courageous individual had seen things that others had overlooked, providing a clarity that had previously eluded them. With these developments, the gravity of the situation became unmistakably clear. They recognized that the time for hesitation was over. Decisive action was not just necessary, it was imperative. Everyone involved understood the stakes. The safety and well-being of Emma depended on their next moves. As they gathered to formulate their plan, a palpable sense of urgency hung in the air. They meticulously reviewed their strategy, discussing every detail of the impending confrontation that lay ahead. It was crucial that they acted swiftly and effectively, ensuring that Emma could finally feel secure and protected in her life. They were committed to including Emma in the process, empowering her by keeping her informed and involved in the steps they were about to take. With a renewed sense of purpose and determination, they reinforced their resolve. Each team member recognized the weight of the responsibility resting on their shoulders, the importance of safeguarding Emma's future, and the need to confront the source of her fears head-on. They were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, united in their mission to secure a future free from the shadows that had so long loomed over Emma's life. With their plan in place and hearts set on justice, they stood on the precipice of change, prepared to take the necessary steps toward a brighter tomorrow. On the day of the intervention, a team of law enforcement officers swarmed to the Carter home, their vehicles lining the quiet suburban street and casting a sense of urgency over the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. Armed with a detailed warrant that outlined the charges against Brian, they approached the residence with a resoluteness that radiated throughout the air. Determined to confront Brian and take action, they moved purposefully, each officer acutely aware of the gravity of the situation that lay ahead. As they stepped through the front door, the sound of their boots echoed in the hallway, reverberating like the beating of drums in a war march. Inside, the tension was palpable, the air thick with anticipation and anxiety. Andy stood slightly behind the front line of officers, his heart racing and filled with a rush of adrenaline. He felt a cocktail of emotions swirling within him, fear for what might happen, hope for a better future, and a fierce desire to protect Emma at all costs. His mind raced with the possibilities of the intervention. Would Brian resist? Would Emma be safe? In that charged moment, Andy's thoughts shifted exclusively to Emma. He hoped and prayed that this was to be a turning point, a defining moment that would pave the way for a new chapter in her young life, a chapter filled not with shadows of fear and uncertainty, but with the warm embrace of love, safety, and the joy that comes from the freedom to simply be a child. He envisioned a life for her where laughter echoed in the halls, where she could play with friends without worry, and where her every dream could take flight without being clipped by the harsh realities of her past. As the officers moved deeper into the house, Andy felt a sense of resolve washing over him. This intervention was not just a raid. It was a bold declaration of hope and a stand against the injustices that had so long plagued Emma's life. He clutched a small token of reassurance in his pocket, a symbol of his commitment to her, something that reminded him of the love that could flourish in her heart if given the chance. The detailed planning and tireless efforts that had led to this day were not in vain. Today, they were all on the brink of something extraordinary. Today marked the beginning of a new era for Emma, and Andy was determined to fight for every moment of joy and innocence she so rightfully deserved. Join the journey of courage and compassion. Dive into the riveting world of The Silent Cry, a tale of courage as we unravel the mysterious and suspenseful tale of Emma's plight and the bravery of those committed to safeguarding her. Your subscription helps us continue bringing stories like Emma's to light, stories that are filled with heart, heroism, and the fight for justice. Glowing Star, subscribe now and become a part of Emma's journey towards safety and freedom. By subscribing, you don't just read a story. You stand with those who dare to speak out. Together, let's ensure no cry for help goes unheard. Click subscribe to join us and gain exclusive access to new chapters, behind-the-scenes content, and the impact your support creates.